Oh, he just muted himself.
And will you take the roll call, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Approval or the Pledge of Allegiance or observation of a moment of silence.
Roll call.
Shay, roll call first.
Oh, roll call first, sorry. David Alvarado,
Here.
Nathaniel Bates,
Here.
Eduardo Martinez,
Here.
Harry Weiner,
He's muted.
oh, Harry is on.
Is Harry
No,
on?
I think Sherry is on in his place.
Okay,
Harry just came in. Let me get
Oh, there you
him.
go.
All right, so Harry's in.
I'm moving him over to panelists,
Okay.
and then okay, so Harry should be just getting in right now.
Testing, testing. Anybody here?
Yes,
yes,
we're here.
I'm doing
Roll
roll call. Harry Weiner,
I am here.
thank you.
All right, next item, please.
Pledge of Allegiance or observation of a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance
flag
to the flag
United
of the
States of
United States of
America.
America,
To the republic.
the republic which stands one nation,
Under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty.
For all.
justice for all.
As soon as possible.
Next item, please.
All right, approval of the agenda. Any member of the board may request an agenda item be postponed, removed, or heard out of order. An item may not be added to the agenda unless it meets the requirements of an emergency situation as defined in Government Code Section 54956.5.
Okay, what is the will of the body? Anyone objecting to this, or we're going to approve the agenda as is?
I moved the item.
Okay.
Who was that?
It was Eduardo.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Mm-hmm.
I seconded.
And who was that?
Harry.
Thank you.
And it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
All right. Edward Martinez,
Here.
Harry Weiner,
Yes.
David Alvarado,
Yes.
Nathaniel Bates,
Yes.
Okay.
and Sherry Stanley, or do we need her?
No, she doesn't vote.
Just an alternate.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Next item, please.
Public comments? I did not receive any.
Okay, so that you don't need to go through the laborious process of reading. Next item, please.
Number 4 is consent of calendar. Matters of the calendar are considered routine and will be approved without discussion. Prior to approval of the consent calendar, a member of the board may request that an item be removed for discussion. If a member of the public would like to speak to an item on the consent calendar, the member should email me prior to the start of the meeting. And I did not receive anything from the public. A is minutes, and the recommendation is to approve the minutes for the meeting of February 27th, 2020.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I moved the item.
And who was that?
Eduardo again.
Can I get a second, please?
Come on, Nat, do your job.
Well, I wasn't there, but I'll second the purpose of moving the meeting.
All right, item's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Eduardo Martinez,
Aye.
Nathaniel Bates,
Yes.
Harry Weiner,
Yes.
David Alvarado.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
I didn't miss anybody. Okay. The next item is board reports. A, reports from board members on issues pertaining to the overall operations of the West County Agency.
All right, we'll start with Councilmember Martinez,
No reports.
Vice Chair Bates,
No report.
Director Weiner.
No report.
No report here. Next item, please.
6, information reports. A, Joint Powers Agency information and the recommendation is to receive an informal report regarding a summary of the JPA coordination procedures, West County Agency budget, cost sharing, and cost reconciliation.
Okay, who we hearing about on this item?
I'm going to start that off, Director Alvarado.
Okay.
Can I share my screen here, Gina?
Yes.
All right. Not yet, I can't.
Oh, I need to, I think I need to allow you.
Okay.
Okay, now you should be able to do that now, Andrew.
All right. Everybody see a simple one-page PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Aye.
Okay. I'll just leave it like that. I can put it in presentation mode, but if everybody can read it, that's fine. Okay, I'm Andrew Clow. I'm the Deputy General Manager at the West County Wastewater District, and I am now also acting as the agency manager for the West County Agency. I'm new to this particular role, and I look forward to trying to develop some good working relationships. I understand that from the last meeting and from some other information we've had that there've been some concerns, some issues, some disputes, however you want to characterize them. But there have been some difficulties over the past year or so in that relationship. My goal is to work towards some solutions, improve that working relationship, and hopefully we can move these important projects forward and work together. To that end, I want to go over some of what we have here on the objectives. I'll talk very briefly about those. Also, I know we have with us here today, we have Mary and we have Yoder from City of Richmond. We also have Katie and John from Carollo, and I think we saw Laura from Veolia as well. So very quickly with the objectives, the existing JPA budgeting procedures, I understand there were concerns. I'm coming up and trying to understand the whole process. We're just going to talk about that very briefly. Justin will talk about the fiscal year 21 budget development, how we put together the operating budget, what that means, capital program as well, and reconciliation of it, the true up that happens at the end of each year. The STS project is the biggest one that we've got coming, and it's a significant project. We want to keep that moving. I'm going to talk a little bit about the project delivery method that we're hoping to go through, what that current budget looks like that was passed, and then some contracting process and procedure. And Nick is going to add in a little bit there, talk a little bit about those contracting authorities. Talk a little bit about we have an internal draft of a JPA amendment, and we'll talk a little bit about that, where that is and what that purpose is. And it's also an opportunity for us, if there are some issues or some things that we don't like in the current JPA, we don't like the way that the process has been working, there's an opportunity to change that. And lastly, we can put it up there for discussion. The administration of the West County Agency, the West County Wastewater District, has been administering the agency for quite some time. I'm not sure how many years. I'm sure some of you here could probably tell me that. But is it time for a change, or do we want to continue the way we're going? So I'll come back up to the top here and talk briefly about the budgeting procedures. essentially within the JPA, it calls for the agency to pass a budget, and then the agency submits invoices to the two parties that are party to the Joint Powers Authority. Those funds are then to be transferred within 30 days. The JPA pays the bills, and at the end of the year, there's a true-up. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the rest of the JPA and the procedures in there. We're welcome to do that if you'd like to, but really that seems to be one of the biggest bones of contention around the capital projects. And we've had some discussions internally. I've talked to Yoder, and it seems reasonable that for capital projects that...
Andrew, I hate to interrupt you, but there
Yeah.
seems to be someone in the background making quite a bit of noise. Can someone mute that, please?
Thank
No.
you.
There.
No, I still hear it.
It's gone
All right.
now.
It seems to be
Okay.
gone. Thank you.
All right. So, we can talk a little bit more when we get down into discussing an amendment process, et cetera. But one thing in particular would be the contracting for capital projects and the current requirement in the existing JPA that once the budget is passed, the agency is supposed to invoice both parties to the Joint Powers Agreement, and then that invoice is supposed to get paid. Well, and that's caused some problems and caused some concerns, and it does seem reasonable to me, and we can have that discussion, but that if we have a capital project, for example, say a $3 million SBS improvement project, that the money does not need to show up in the West County agency budget immediately within 30 days, but rather we could invoice just prior to bidding the project, and then the monies can come in. We got to have the monies in the coffers to be able to appropriate the funds and encumber them for that particular project, the construction project. We can't actually enter into the contract without the funds being available at that time. But we could make changes to the JPA so those kinds of things could happen. I'd also be interested in finding out later, what are the other issues? What are the concerns that we have with the JPA that people would like to change? And we'll come down to that a little bit more in detail a little further down. But right now, I'll ask Justin to talk a little bit about the fiscal year. Well, let me just ask first before I do that. Is everybody okay with the process I've laid out here and sort of how we want to talk through these? Any concerns? You're muted, David.
This is Director Alvarado. That same background noise is still going on. I don't know who that is, but can you please mute that? And then I just want to talk about process a little bit. I think that the process you outlined is great, but I think after each individual bullet, I'm going to have open it up for questions, and we're going to go in question order of Councilmember Martinez, Director Wiener, Vice Chair Bates, and I'll finish up if I have any questions. So I think right now, after the first, it looks like you've already completed talking about the first bullet. Am I correct?
Yes, I didn't have a lot more to say about that right now. It was mostly to acknowledge that we've had some concerns and some issues, and I want to reiterate what the actual provisions of the JPA are right now. And then if we wanted to have some further discussion about the JPA as a whole, we could do that. If we want to talk about some issues and items that we'd like to see amended, then we can do that down at bullet point 4 there.
All right, so just on the first bullet, on the existing JPA budgeting procedures that Mr. Clough outlined, I want questions solely based on that, and then we'll move forward to the next bullet item. So, Councilmember Martinez, do you have any questions on the first bullet item?
Yeah, I do. It was my understanding that like the city of Richmond, budgets are only outlines of possible appropriations, and that was the understanding that I passed the budget on. So the problem has been that when the city of Richmond passes budgets, the money's not appropriated until it's approved by the city council, you know, as the money comes up. So this is the existing JPA budgeting procedures. That's been problematic. Will the changes take into account that the monies need to be approved by the Richmond City Council before the monies can move?
Andrew?
Well,
I can answer that, Andrew.
yeah, I was going to say I hung up a little bit on the coordination aspect with Richmond, but that was Mick. Go right ahead, Mick.
That was Mick. Yeah, this is Mick. The existing JPA already says that each member is required to approve the amounts in the West County agency budget and include those amounts in their own budgets. So I don't know that a change is necessary to address that question.
Okay, well, changes need to happen so that the because we can't be approving money without a public forum at city council.
That's true, and that it's anticipated that when the West County agency budget is proposed, that will be sent off to both agencies, Richmond and West County Wastewater District, and each agency will then put the amount in their own budgets that's sufficient to cover what the West County agency needs and approve those as part of a public process.
Maybe I could, is it true, Mick, that right now, the way it's written is that once the West County agency passes the budget, then the agency's supposed to submit the invoice in a certain time frame. Could it be that invoice doesn't get submitted until after it's clear that the two other agencies have actually adopted their budgets, so that funding is available?
Yeah, that's a good question. The existing JPA says the invoice is supposed to be submitted by the agency manager within 30 days after the agency passes its budget. We could certainly give it a longer time frame than that, so it gives both agencies time to adopt their own budgets and includes the West County agency amounts in it.
Councilmember Martinez, did that answer your question?
Murkily, yeah. It's still not clear as to what the timelines are and how the timelines will interact with each other. Because our monies are based on bonds, and until the bonds clear, we don't have the money, and then after the bonds clear, it doesn't look good to our constituents to be giving all the bond money away to another agency without having a clear outline as to what those bonds are being used for.
There is a provision in the West County Agency Joint Powers Agreement that says the West County Agency budget must be adopted by July 1st of each year. And as I recall, we've tried to give proposed budgets to both agencies so they can address those issues and properly allocate their funds so that we can have a West County Agency budget adopted in time as required by the agreement. The fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30th, so we need to have a budget in place for the fiscal year.
Well, as I said before, in the city of Richmond, the budget is a outline. It's not set in stone until those various items are approved by the city council. At the time that they're approved by the city council, then they become actuals. So I guess I'm talking the difference between projected and actuals in a budget. When the budget's approved, it's not the actual budget that's being approved. It's an outline, and so monies don't necessarily have to be there until it's actually voted on as an item to be acted on. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm wondering, does that occur after July 1st of each year?
Well, yeah. We approved the budget. The money is earmarked, but it's not necessarily there until we approve that money for that item. So it's the difference between being earmarked and actually being allocated.
Sounds like that's an item for discussion, but at least starting at the staff level and then at the board level at some point. Because we have to coordinate this timing somehow.
Right.
But
Okay.
I suppose one solution would be that the West County agency can adopt its budget like it normally does, subject to approval of each other agency's budgets.
Okay. So it sounds like it's an item that needs to be discussed.
All right. Any further questions, Councilmember Martinez?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Oh, one other question. Will this presentation be available to us online?
This recording, I can answer that if you'd like.
Go ahead, Justin.
Councilmember Martinez, so this will be available as a recording once the meeting's over. So,
Okay.
But we can also give you the slide if you would like as well.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Director Weiner, any questions?
I feel like I'm unaware of all of the things that were brought up by this first item. And I would appreciate some background, a background discussion so that I could participate more fully in going forward on items regarding the WCA versus its members. And that's all I have.
There was a staff report January 27th. I can send that to you because it lays out what we've been discussing.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Bates?
Well, I think Mickey and I have been around more than anyone else in terms of tenure. It's my understanding, I understand where Councilmember Martinez is coming from, but it's my understanding that each year, July, all the cities adopt their budget. Included in the budget, and you can have Mr. Dominguez, either Eric Jenkins clarify. In the budget is that we appropriate and allocate monies for the JPA to be reflective of what the budget is asking from the city. What Martinez has reference to is that even though we do that for all of the departments, anytime they come with an expenditure request, then it has to also go before our council to get the approval. And the problem has been that our council, well, I don't know whether it's our staff or our council, have not been responsive to the 30-day or the frequency of the request from the JPA. The money is there, but then we got to approve it a second time, even though it's been approved in the budget. And that's just the control mechanism that the city of Richmond operates from. So it's not a matter of changing everything. It's simply a matter of when you submit the request for funding, is that our city finance department and the city manager put it on the agenda, get it approved and move. That's the simple thing, and that's all we have to do. I don't know why we have to do all these different changes and everything. But Mickey, you may be want to elaborate on this, and if Bermuda is there, Yada, he may want to elaborate, or Everett, and that's the simplest way to process it. Richmond has to respond in a timely manner to the request. Simple as that.
Yeah, this is Jader. Can I follow up?
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Andrew and I have been in communication, almost daily in last week. And I mean, the plan is continue with that communication in our budget development. I agree with Mr. Bates, Councilmember Bates, there is no need for a change. It's just more communication between the two agencies. I knows each other for a long time, so that communication is there.
Anything further? All right, so I have no questions on the first bullet item, so let's move on to the next one, please.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that issue and see what else we can do about it to make to clarify. And that's really what I was leading into at the beginning of this, is we want to make sure that everybody is clear on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and hopefully it can work cooperatively. And to that end, Justin's going to talk a little bit about the fiscal year 21 budget development, so everybody sees what's coming. We passed a budget last year that included a large capital project, and that capital project is just getting to the stage where we're hoping to be beginning design on it. So that was a case where there was a lot of money that was budgeted, but really wasn't needed during most of the fiscal year. So that's why we want to maybe take a look at when we would invoice for some of those large sums of money. But Justin will talk about the operating budget, what's left in it, and what the reconciliation process is. So we're all clear on where that is and where that's coming from, and there's no surprises there. Justin, did you want me to stop sharing my screen?
I can stop sharing for you, and I will.
All right. You got
move on. So you can put it in. Let's go back here.
All
right. So now, good morning, Director, Council members. I am Justin Lovell, Administrative Services Department Manager with West County Wastewater District. I'm going to show you our the proposed budget for 2021. You can also see kind of our actuals for last fiscal year, 2019, as well as the budget that was adopted by the West County Agency last June. So as you can see in this current year's budget, there's some really large capital expenses that were approved that have not, that weren't typical from past years, and we haven't really spent any of that capital money. So most of our expenses this year have really been going into the largest expense has been paying for the NPDES permit to the State Water Board. We also have membership fees with the Area Clean Water Agencies, BACWA, as well as just some attorney fees, as well as assistance with the NPDES permit compliance. So that's the majority of our operating expenses. And you can see our year-to-date, this is through today, we have, on the operating side, we have spent approximately almost $300,000 out of a $538,000 budget. On the revenue side, the way that we show it, we bill each agency at the time that, after the expenses occur, based on the split that is in the JPA. But part of the JPA, as mentioned through Andrew, is that we do request the full payment of the budgeted expenses 30 days after the WCA board approves the budget. So we hold the money. So just so you know, we did categorize the $617,000 payment that we did get from the City of Richmond this year. We put it in a different account, and then so far the portion of the City of Richmond this year is $1,000. But we do have, we just don't recognize that revenue until the expenses occur. And so right now, and then at the end of the year, we do a true up. And then so any money, if we need to, if we've overpaid, then we would submit a check back to the City of Richmond for just to true up all the expenses so we've allocated appropriately. So I'm happy to answer any questions about our budget. Oh, I just want to, and then our operating budget, we're not anticipating greater expenses. It's pretty much the standard permit compliance, the minor maintenance, as well as just some other fees. But as say in the 2021, we're proposing that it would be pretty much what a typical WCA year budget would be, assuming that these other projects that we would roll forward with the other capital projects.
All right, so are you done with that,
yes,
Justin?
I am done, so I'm happy answering.
Can I add something, Director Alvarado?
Sure, go right ahead.
on the capital project there, the adopted budget from last year for the SPS project shows the $3 million line item. And as you see, Justin doesn't have a, proposed budget, and that's assuming that budget allocation would roll over. But when we come back in June for budget adoption, we'll have a little bit more information, a little more clarity, and that budget number is likely to change a bit to include design costs as well as some, making sure that we have a better cost estimate. So there may be some adjustment that's going to look a little bit different when it comes back in June, but Justin's trying to lay out exactly what we will be looking at and what that process would be.
All right, so let's stop here. And any questions on this one? I'm sorry, Councilmember Martinez.
Yes, it says that the adopted budget was $4 million, and the actuals is only $359,000. What else was budgeted that wasn't spent?
Well, there's still a handful of other expenses on the operating side that will be incurred this year. But you see the largest expense, $3.6 million, was for capital projects, and we've only spent $19,000 of one capital project so far this fiscal year. So it's largely there we'll have a couple more invoices on the operating side, but it's on the capital side. It's really we're not ready to spend. There, as Andrew said, there's still a lot more. There's some more discussions to be had on especially the SBS project.
Okay, and one other question. You said that more money was transferred over to West County Agency, more than the $4 million. How much was transferred?
Well, so if we look at the adopted budget, the original invoice to City of Richmond was $2.6 million, and so the City of Richmond paid $607,000. We got $617,000 check in November of this last year, and so the $114,000. That's just we're drawing down on that $617,000 and showing that as revenue once the expenses occur.
Okay, and just curiosity, while this money is being held, is it accruing interest?
That it is not. It is held in the WCA bank account, which is essentially a non-interest bearing account. So if there is, that could be a discussion of the board of how we handle the the cash flow, whether there needs to be another account.
Okay, it's I think it's a discussion worth having, especially if we start transferring large amounts that will like the amounts that will be entailed when we start doing major capital improvements.
Ms. Phelps has a question as well.
Ms. who?
Phelps, Mary Phelps.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that person. Hold on one second. Director Wiener, any questions?
None. I would just caution that for the time being, there won't be any interest-bearing accounts available. There'll be net zero in terms of banks and lending institutions. So for the moment, there's no rush in getting to moving it into an interest-bearing account. But I agree that would be a good idea.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bates?
No questions.
I have none, so whoever has a question, please go forward now.
This is Katie. I have a really basic question. So this budget, the fiscal year 2020 budget that Justin was just showing, this is what we're adopting today, or it's already been adopted based on previous work or estimates?
The fiscal year 2020 budget was adopted last June of 2019.
Okay. Okay.
And the proposed budget is just to show you what we're estimating at this point. We would be coming back to the WCA board in June to ask for adoption of the 2021 budget.
Okay. And if I followed all of the discussion about the order of how things happen, WCA adopts the budget first, and then the respective budgets that are paid by each agency are adopted by each of the member agencies. So West County's board would approve the portion that West County's covering, and the City of Richmond would approve the portion that the City of Richmond is covering. Did I understand all of that correctly, or maybe I oversimplified?
That is correct.
Okay. And one thing is, I think soft costs are still being figured out. I know that there were updated costs that were developed since June for the construction costs. So for at least the sodium, and I'm talking specifically about the sodium bisulfite project. So that line item likely refined, I'm thinking between now and June.
Yes, Katie, that's what I was referring to earlier. And we
Okay.
can talk a little bit more detail on that when we get down to the SBS project line item on the objectives. But that's absolutely true. That budget will need to get adjusted a little bit before it's adopted in June, based on
Okay.
information we're going to receive primarily from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next bullet item, please.
Wasn't Ms. Phelps wanting to speak to this?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
You adopt a budget in June, but with Richmond, the way that our budget prep works is we normally have to have everything to our city manager and our finance director, by April. So we work on proposed numbers, but yet I can see that you already have your, proposed budget preliminary numbers ready. So what are the odds that these numbers are going to change between now and June? Because this does help us in planning. And so we wouldn't have all these surprises when I do the budget, and that's been kind of an issue for us, having late budget numbers adopted in June, and then we had that $3 million surprise last year, which, we take full responsibility of that, because by a simple resolution, we can adopt all these projects, and then Councilmember Bates's, headache with staff can go away. As long as we have a detailed budget, we just do it by one resolution, and boom, it's done. So if this is basically what you're going to adopt in June, then we're good. But, waiting until June when our budget's basically been solidified and finished, that becomes an issue for us, because right now we're like submitting our budgets right now. So that's my issue, and that's my headache, and that's what I would like to get resolved.
Mary, it's an excellent question, and I understand that that's exactly it. They're budgets, and you do an estimate, and then if during the course of the year it has to get adjusted, then you make those adjustments later for the true cost. I think in looking at the numbers, you see the budget for fiscal year 2020, which you're familiar with, the amount of money there for the SBS project, which hasn't been transferred, but that you have that from a budgeted amount. You're aware of that. As far as how much more money we might need for that project, if you need for planning purposes right now, I would say, between $500,000 and $700,000.
Okay.
And Katie, if you think that I'm off base on that, let me know. But I think from a construction and a design.
And that cost is to be split between the two agencies, is that correct?
I think Andrew got frozen, but this is Justin again. I will. That is correct. All these costs are split, and then as Andrew and I are new, we definitely are working on making sure how we can better coordinate all our these efforts. So so we can get the information to the City of Richmond when you need to have it for your budgeting purposes. And so
well, we went back, just so you know, we did go back at mid-year to reallocate this funding, so we're ready to move on this project now.
Right. Okay.
And Mary, when you say split, it is, but it's not an equal split for this for the SPS.
I totally get that.
Okay.
I don't 50-50. I should say shared. It's a
Shared. There you go.
Okay, is that a better word?
Yep.
Okay, shared. All right. Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay,
right.
I hope I didn't miss much. I dropped off there for about a minute, unfortunately.
You didn't miss much.
All right, thank you.
Let's proceed to the next bullet item.
All right, can you put the? Oh, thank you, Justin. That was quick.
You can share again.
All right. So there we are, the SBS project budget and delivery. And that was exactly sort of the questions, Mary, that you were asking and that Katie was asking. That's what we wanted to talk about a little bit right here. is, as Yoder mentioned earlier, he and I have been having a number of conversations, also, talking with our own staffs about the project delivery method and also the budgeting process to do this project. And where we stand is that it is a West County agency project. And so ultimately, the JPA requires that the West County agency needs to pay those bills, whoever those contracts are with. The project delivery method that we're looking at right now would be that we need to do the design and move forward with the design. And there's consensus between the agencies that we would like to move forward with Carollo to do that design work, which means we're going to have to enter into a contract with Carollo. That contract we see as a West County agency contract. And so it's our intent is to negotiate that contract and enter into that with Carollo so that design work can continue or proceed from its preliminary stage in accordance with Alternative 2, which was the chosen project. There is money in the fiscal year 20 budget, as we saw. There's a lot of money sitting in that project, $3 million that had been budgeted for it. So we have plenty of funds to be able to start and continue on with that design. The second part of that is then we're going to have to bid that project out. And in conversations with Yoder, what we've discussed is that once we have that design, that Richmond would utilize their bidding process for contracting, and then we would select the contractor to do the construction work. We would use the process from Richmond as opposed to having it run through West County Wastewater District process, and I would say that I appreciate that because that is sharing some of the administrative burden. As we, the West County Wastewater District, are been working as the agency manager, I appreciate that in this case, Richmond would share some of that administrative burden by going through that contracting process. But that contract we would enter into would then be a West County agency contract. The third part of that would be the project management, construction management. Richmond currently has a contract with Veolia, and that contract contemplates capital projects being performed on the plant site. And there's already mechanisms within that contract to have them perform project management. You have, and Yoder can speak to this in far more detail than I can, as far as how they can be managed and what those fees would be. And it would be our intent to say that we're going to utilize that contract that Richmond already has in place, and then that those invoices from Veolia for that portion of the project would then be sent to the West County agency and paid for by the West County agency. And then when we pass the budget in June, we would ensure that there's a resolution there acknowledging that this board recognizes that is what we're doing. We utilize the existing Richmond contract and their procedures to have been in place with Veolia. We could go into some more detail about what the project is and what our phasing would be, but the main points that I wanted to get today was that we do want to move together on this important project. We are coordinating, and this is the contracting mechanism that we plan to use. There will be some changes in the budget, as we just discussed a few minutes ago, and we'll get that information back in time for the adoption of the budget in June, and hopefully Mary got what she needed from a rough estimate of what we might expect those to be. And Yoder, if you wanted to add anything to that, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, we're open to questions here. And then Mick also can add a little bit of background I would appreciate on the procurement process that I just laid out there and how that coincides with what the JPA currently says.
You covered it very well, Andrew. That's fine with me.
Okay. Mick, could you give us a little background on some contracting process there?
Yeah, it's been fairly flexible over the years. The JPA allows the West County agency to contract with any of its members for any services, and that's exactly what Andrew was just talking about. So we'll follow, we intend to follow that process. It's been done a few times in the past. Most recently, we did it on the outfall repair in the mid-90s. That seems like yesterday to me, but it was 25 years ago. It was a large project, about $1.4 million. Richmond liked using Kennedy Jenks at the time as their designer and as their project manager. So we did basically the same project process that Andrew just described. Nothing new. It just requires a little bit of coordination and cooperation between staff.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Okay, let's open it up to questions. Councilmember Martinez?
Oh, he's muted.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiner?
No questions.
Vice Chair Bates?
No question, but in conversation with Yada, this is a project coming up need to be fast tracked, which means that we should probably meet very shortly to approve the process, because you got the weather situation coming up and we can't keep postponing and delaying something that is going to create problems if we don't act in a reasonable period of time. So I don't know what Yada has in mind in terms of how soon we should be going out for bid on this project, but maybe he can speak to that.
This is just for the design, isn't it?
Yeah, the current, what's in our critical path here would be the design portion. This project won't actually go out to bid until probably sometime in the fall. And then that's also when the construction management, project management elements from Veolia would be important, although there may be some input or assistance from them earlier in the process. So this is about entering into a contract with Corolla.
Looks like
I think Andrew just froze. Yeah, I think Andrew just froze. But the joint powers agreement, says that once a budget is adopted, the manager has the right to expend money within the budgeted amount for the budgeted purpose, and design would be part of that budgeted purpose. So we have money already budgeted and authorized to spend on design. We'll come back. We intend to come back with the project design and such as that, and the construction contract for approval when it's ready.
Okay.
Okay, Andrew, did you unfreeze? Is he back?
He's still frozen.
Still frozen.
All right, Justin, do you have the capacity to keep going on the next bullet item?
Andrew has the next bullet item. He had that slide. So I don't recall what it was.
All right, so
it may be the JPA amendments. I think that was part of what he wanted to talk about. And that's pretty simple. We're talking about two different amendments. One is to provide for the SDS project. And that I think we'll just do as an amendment or an attachment to the existing joint powers agreement, which will lay out the expenses, the cost sharing, and such as that. So that's part of the amendment. The other part, been talking for several years about making the joint powers agreement more of an operational document. I think what has occurred the agencies used to each bill each other for their costs, their fully burdened labor costs and such as that. And there was a true up at the end of each year. That got to be cumbersome. So a few years ago, the agencies all agreed, look, we don't want to go through this annual reconciliation on our labor costs. Let's just say whichever services we provide for each other are relatively equal. That may no longer be the case. For example, Richmond is doing the outfall maintenance, effluent monitoring, dechlorination. The West County Wastewater District is doing the administration, sludge handling, sludge disposal, lagoon maintenance. Question is, are those services on either side both relatively equal, or do we need to address a different way to either compensate Richmond or compensate West County? So that's part of the operational discussions we're going to have. So I think that addresses.
And Andrew's back on, it looks like.
Oh, good. And we have drafted, internally, we've drafted a proposed amendment. West County Wastewater District staff is reviewing that. Once they've done their review, we'll send it to Richmond for review as well.
All right, is Andrew back?
He's muted. Andrew, you're muted.
There, he's unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, I'm back. I have my internet connection here sometimes has problems. Anyway,
okay. Is it possible for you to put those bullets back on the screen so we can see where we're at?
Yeah, Justin can do that. Justin, is it back to me?
Justin?
I got it.
Okay, there you
guys
go.
got it?
All right.
Okay.
So it looks like Mick just talked about the JPA amendment process and purpose, correct, Mick?
That is correct.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add, Andrew?
The only thing on that was the reason why I was here is, as I mentioned in the beginning, there have been some concerns, and I know Director Martinez went over what some of his concerns were on the budgeting process and procedures and some of the billing issues. Those, I think, were some of the biggest ones, and I missed a Mick's summary, but I'm pretty confident that it
was
would be
pretty
similar.
good, pretty concise.
Okay, and that what we're looking for is to just do some cleanup on it, and for the SBS project, for example, create an exhibit on there that delineates and lays out some of our procedures, which we can do at a staff level too, but we can also put it in there, and then that would sunset. But this was an opportunity, if there are some other issues or concerns with the JPA that members have, that we could hear about those now. Otherwise, we'll work at a staff level to make some changes and bring that back to the board at a future date.
All right, so we'll open it up. That's perfect opportunity for questions. Councilmember Martinez.
Pretty clear. What's actually what's the timeline on restructuring the payment split or payment share?
On restructuring the payment share?
Right. It's my understanding that that there was a conversation about making the JPA an operational unit, and that the jobs that are done by West County and the jobs that are done by the city of Richmond are different, and the question is, are they equal? And if not, exactly how much work is done by one unit, and how does that compare to the work done by the other? And so the share, it's my understanding, was going to be determined by that comparison.
Those are part of the discussions that we are having and that we will have with Richmond staff. It was Richmond staff that raised the question and then concern, so we want to have a discussion with them to see, do they feel that these labor switch is unfair, and if so, why, and how can we adjust it to make it fair? So
Right.
those are ongoing discussions. You asked about timeline. I don't know about timeline.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And again, I would say the same thing that Mick said on the timeline. I hope that we could do this within a few months at the most, but part of it was I wanted to make sure that we could clear the air here in this meeting. I'm trying to come up to speed with what's happened historically and what the issues were, and it sounds like there aren't as many significant issues between the two parties as I had imagined there were from what I was hearing, and I hope that to be true. But what I was hoping here is if there are some, and there are some concerns, that we knew about them, so there's stuff that we could address. And I'm hearing the cost sharing. We know about the contracting procedure and the timing of invoicing and the true up. And if there were any other major issues, I wanted to hear about those so that we could work at those at a staff level and be able to bring that back.
Thank you, Andrew. Director Weiner.
I have no questions.
Vice Chair Bates.
And what I assume is that there's an attempt to just do the man hours of each agency and to quantify it and make a cost associated with whether Richmond does 40% of the hours, West County agency does 60%, and then make the prorated share of the cost. Is that what you have reference to?
That's generally what we're talking about. We did that for many, many years, and it got to be an administrative headache.
Yeah.
And we all agreed, look, we're pretty close. One agency may be doing more than the other one year and the other the next year. So we just decided to not do that anymore. It sounds like that discussion is going to come back. to where we can
Yeah.
discuss whether there's a need for an apportionment.
Okay, well, that's not a director situation from my perspective. It's more of a staff, West County staff and Richmond staff, that you guys need to get together and work out and come up with a formula that's you feel is equal and fair. That's the only thing I have.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Bates. I have no questions. So let's move on to the final administration of the West County Agency.
Number 7 is the good of the order for
No,
future
not yet,
agenda
not
items.
yet. No.
Oh,
We still
sorry.
got Administration of the West County Agency.
And
The final bullet point.
I added this one in here because, Mick, maybe you could mention how many years it's been, but for quite a few years now, the West County Wastewater District has acted as the agency manager. And I put it here at the bottom of the list because after we went through a number of these other discussions to see what the real issues were and if we had more concerns, but I wanted to open it up for discussion to see, is it time, as the JPA contemplates, that this is the agency manager is a shared responsibility, that for a few years or a year or so, it would be one of us and then it would be the other one. And it's been the West County Wastewater District for quite some time. Is there interest on the part of the board or staff to say there's either concerns with the way that the West County Wastewater District has been managing this and Richmond would rather take over control of that, or if there's just, it's time for a change and to have Richmond do it for a while, or do we want to stay where we are and have the West County Wastewater District continue to be the agency manager? And I'm just putting it out there right now as an open question, and I'd like to have some feedback on that.
Sure. Councilmember Martinez?
I don't believe that's something that I could speak to without having consultation with staff. So I believe, you know, I think things are working fine. They have been working fine, you know, but as to improvements, you know, I think it's we need to have internal conversations with our staff to get an idea of exactly, you know, what could be done better.
Okay. Okay. Director Weiner?
Ditto. I would like staff to bring forth information whereby I could understand what the issues are and what to do about them.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Bates?
Well, I'm comfortable with the current process, but if staff of both agencies collectively feel that there is a need for change and modification to make it a better agency, then I'm willing to listen and take their guidance and their recommendations.
Thank you. I myself believe that the partnership is going in the right direction. I will also defer to staff to see if that's what their assumptions are as well. Because basically this is a staff-driven thing. You know, you guys come to us, we meet, but essentially staff is doing the work. So I think, Andrew, that really staff needs to get together with the board of WCWD, and we need to discuss that as well to see, you know, if we think that this process is fine. If not, let's make some suggestions to the city of Richmond, and you know, as a West County agency together, we can make these decisions. But your report has been good. It's been concise. I think we've answered a lot of questions here today. I would say before moving on to the next item, if there's any other further questions from the members on any of the issues outlined here. So first I'm going to ask Councilmember Martinez, any further questions?
No further questions.
Okay. Director Weiner?
Nope.
Vice Chair Bates?
No.
I have nothing further as well. So let's move on to the next item, please.
Okay, number 7, good of the order and future agenda items.
All right, Councilmember Martinez, do you have anything for good of the order, future agenda items?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiner.
No, not at this time.
Vice Chair Bates.
I defer to Yada if there are some areas of concern from the city that we should address as soon as possible.
Yada.
I need to talk to Evers about more details. I don't have an answer right now.
Okay. Thank you. Just so I'm clear, when will we be discussing the budget again? Is this going to happen at the June meeting?
Yes, that would be at the June meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my final question. Next item, please.
Next item is adjournment.
All right, thank you all for coming. I hope everybody is staying safe. Hopefully, we're in the back end of this thing, and our next meeting will be live. I'm hoping.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Yes.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice seeing you all.
Thanks.
Actually,
Bye.
I guess it's too late, but I was wondering if we might be able to discuss how the coronavirus has affected the workings of the West County Agency.
Mick, is that okay?
Yeah, it's really under good of the order. You can do a
Okay.
brief discussion on that.
Absolutely. So whoever wants to
Okay.
chime in, please do.
Enough.
Yeah, Aaron or Michael, maybe Aaron, you want to say anything about operations and how it's affected? Because primarily the West County Agency is about operations of the joint facility.
Yeah, this is Aaron. I think just generally speaking, from the operations side of the West County Wastewater District, we're down to probably 8 staff maximum during the weekdays, where typically we would be at between 23 and 25. So that's specific to the operations of the West County Wastewater District itself. Our operations off the Parkway on Garden Tract. So we're at about 1/3 of staffing. And really it's just, doing the minimum amount of work and maintenance that we are able to do. But again, that really doesn't translate to the West County, agency, because I think from the standpoint of the agency itself, everything that needs to get done is getting done. We're working with Richmond every day, on the sludge and leachate transfer and all the other operational things. So, that's kind of where we're at, if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Hey,
All right.
I'd like to ask Aaron a question in reference to staff. That's you say you're down about 1/3. Are they being compensated sick leave, vacation, just what's the process?
Do you want me to handle that, Andrew, or would you like to handle
Sure.
that, or Justin?
Sure. No, well, yeah, maybe Justin can. He's probably got the best handle agency-wide.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So the West County Wastewater Board of Directors approved a special admin leave for staff who were sent home due to the COVID response. So they are being compensated, and it's a separate bucket of leave other than sick leave or their vacation leave.
Okay, well, it was just interesting because Richmond hasn't done anything, and I have no idea how we're relating to our situation. Yada may have better information than I do, but the council, and maybe Eduardo, you got better information than I do. I have none no communication in reference to how we're dealing with individuals who are at home not working.
Well, it seems like Yoder would be the one more able to answer that question, since he's in charge of operations. Yoder?
Is Yada still with us?
He might have left.
I believe he left the call.
Yeah, I think he left the call.
Okay, so if he left the call, he left the call. I mean,
Okay. Well, then I guess that's something we'll have to ask the city council.
yeah, for sure.
Is
All right.
Mary Phelps still there? Maybe she know.
Yes, I'm here, sir. I can speak for the Water Resource Recovery Department. You know, basically the plant operators are working as minimal as possible. Laura can speak to the admin staff is working remotely, teleworking. They are available 8 to 4:30, as well as all of the administrative staff, finance, and all of those are available 8 to 4:30. If any staff has been sent home because they are considered, quote, non-essential, they are being paid by the city for the time being. But in the event they are called, you know, for duty purposes, reporting to work, and they are not available, they are to time out for their vacation or sick leave. So everyone is to remain, quote, on call as needed.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything further on that subject? Seeing none, okay, meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.